Well, Tanya Unkovich is the author of Unplanned Journey, and it details all of the events surrounding her husband's death and the grieving process that she had to go through. Tanya, I want to welcome you to Focus 4. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, you've written this book, Unplanned Journey, and I'm sure that it wasn't easy to write this. But could you tell us about this book?
Sure. It was actually a book that Philip wanted to write. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, he'd already started keeping a journal. But he said to me, I want to write a book one day about how I have actually coped with having cancer. And I want to show people that you can actually survive this process. So he kept quite a detailed journal, and it was just such a passion for him to eventually write this book. But sadly, he didn't get to do it.
So you got to finish the book for him?
Well, I started it and finished it. So it was a few days after his funeral, actually, that I just had this deep feeling and deep knowing to start writing this book for him. And he kept all of his journals for me, so I knew that one day I would eventually read his journals, and from that I would actually start writing this book.
So tell us about your husband. What was he like?
Philip. He was actually, he was a very tall man, and he was a little bit of a Christopher Reeve lookalike. Oh. And everyone used to say, oh my God, he looks just like Superman. So he had a very dry sense of humour, very compassionate man, very kind and humble. And he was a rather quiet man, but once he came into the home of my family, we're all loud Croatians, he eventually blossomed and became quite loud himself. So he was a very likeable man.
And what did this do to you whenever, he started to get sick? What happened to you? What were you encouraging to him? Was it really difficult? Did you have really hard days watching him go through this?
Yeah, actually I was thinking about this the other night. For me, one of the hardest things in the entire process was Phil, and seeing his pain and seeing at times when his fear would come. I just wanted to take that away for him. But you can't. It's their journey. Ultimately, it was his journey and walk. And there was nothing I could do but just stand beside him and support him. So every process is different for everyone. And you've just got to be with whatever comes.
And have you had a good response to your book, to the different places that you've gone?
Yes, I have. And what's lovely about this is that people who have read the book, they often send me an email and they tell me what it was like for them reading it or how it helped them. And that's what makes the whole thing worthwhile for me, because I so wanted to assist people who are going through something similar, whether it be the grieving process through death or loss of any sort. So it makes everything worthwhile that I've done.
And how can we get a copy of this book?
You can get it through any of the places on site, like Amazon or Barnes & Noble's Christian Books, anywhere. Just you can Google my name and you'll find a lot of the search engines that will.
And it's called Unplanned Journey, and there's also a workbook that goes along with this.
There is indeed. It's the Workbook Companion, and it's something that can be used by anyone who's going through a grieving process, and it's like a journal. So you can write all of your own thoughts and feelings, and I've put a whole lot of questions through it that relate to grief, loss, and that is how you can actually work through it yourself.
Well, Tanya, we've heard a little bit about your husband. I want to know a little bit more about you. It's no surprise that you're not from the United States. So where are you from?
I'm from Auckland, New Zealand, and so I've come up to the States for a wee tour and to tell everyone about the book. So that's me. I'm a CPA actually by trade. And later on in life I studied to be a therapist and a life coach. So that is what I do now.
And when did God become more than just a word to you, Tanya?
From as far back as I can remember. I remember when I was about 4 years old, I used to collect pictures of Jesus and little statues and things like that, and it was just something I had a yearning for. I was raised a Christian, so it's been with me all of my life, and in my teen, and no matter what books you read, there are parts of the grieving process that are unique to you. For me, at times I felt terror, at times I felt fear, and at times I actually felt an incredible peace because I felt God near me so much. And I knew that no matter what was going to happen in my life, God was near me, and that there was actually nothing for me to be concerned about, that I would be taken care of.
And how did your relationship with the Lord change from the time that you knew that your husband had cancer and then he passed on through the whole grieving process, and you come to the acceptance of it? Where are you with Jesus now?
Well, with now very close to the Lord. During the time of Phil's illness, I just clung to the Lord every single day, and that was how I got through. Just one day at a time, I said, help me to carry this cross, because it felt like such a cross for me. And you know, you bargain with God. You do the bargaining, and then you eventually start surrendering, and you accept. And it was X day of Phil's life that I accepted that Phil would be gone shortly. Once Phil passed away, the acceptance was there, and then I was so close to God, and then I got a bit angry with God, but I knew that there was no alternative for me, that I had to stay as close as I possibly could, because that was what was going to get me through.
And on the days where you might have had questions or you were angry with God, how did you deal with it then?
I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, lots of journaling, and I'm really lucky to have wonderful support. One of my best friends, she's a therapist, and she actually came and stayed with me one night, and I cried and I screamed for about 24 hours. And then it was all gone. I had to do that though, because it was sitting in there. That pain was there.
And was there ever a scripture or a story maybe in the Bible that really helped you? Maybe even if you just said it for comfort, maybe, you know, there's some times where we say it and we're just not sure we believe it at the moment, but we know that if we say it, you know, God will be there with us.
The Psalms have always been a great strength for me, and Psalm 30 all the way through. And I knew that even though I was mourning, that soon there would be joy for me. And I just held on to that. My parish priest gave me 3 words which were so valuable, and it was, Jesus, remember me. And when I was so down and couldn't pray, couldn't read, if I just said those 3 words, then peace would come. Eventually peace would come.
Now, I just want to encourage the audience again that if you know someone that might be going through this struggle, or you yourself are going through it, you know, you can get this book, Unplanned Journey by Tanya Unkovich. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at family bookstores. And you do have a website?
I do have a website. It's my name, TanyaUnkovich.com.
Okay, well, that's great. Now, how has your relationship with others changed because of this? I mean, I'm sure you probably appreciate life in a different way.
Every day that I wake up, I say thank you for my life, and I have a yearning to help others who are going through similar processes, whether it be death through loss or separation of any sort. And one of the places that I work actually are people who are very ill. So all I want to do is assist others, particularly with that emotion of fear, which can so often take hold. And I don't want to see people going through that. If I can help someone in some way, then nothing gives me more pleasure now.
So do you have any book writings in the future?
I'm writing a 3rd book at the moment, and it's more about my journey since the end of this book here, because what happened then was the growth of Tanya. As I was now different in the world, my identity was different. I was no longer a married woman. I had so many changes in my life, and I had to rediscover who I was. So the journey for the last 3 years has been extraordinary. So that's what's getting put down on paper now.
And where are you going after you leave Pittsburgh?
Atlanta, Florida, and then back to California.
Well, that's great. Well, Tanya, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And you can get the book, Unplanned Journey, in your local Christian bookstores or on Amazon.com. Thanks, Tanya, and we'll be right back after this.